I see so many companies that I work with or that I speak to or are at my seminars, and I find so many of them are working off tiny margins and really not making very much money for the owners. Now, most of these have one thing in common. It's not the lack of customers, it's the fact that they have tiny margins because they're competing on price with other organisations and other companies. You can't compete on price very often as a small business and be successful in the long term. You've got to increase your prices but offer some better value to the customer. Customers don't always buy on price, and this is just something that is a misconception to most small business owners. They buy on value, otherwise everyone would drive around in the cheapest car. Now, if you're competing on price and you're too cheap, it sounds easy for me to say increase the prices, but it actually is quite straightforward. You just need to offer greater value. So here are 5 ways you can do that. Now, the first thing to understand is that people buy on value. They don't buy on price. Now, value is the whole shebang, it's the whole proposition that you offer the customer. As I say, if everybody bought purely on price, then everyone would be driving around in the cheapest car, because all cars these days are reliable and work, but it's all about the value. So you need to make sure that you give perceived value to your prospects. So let's look at these 5 ways. The first one, and a lot of people will disagree with me here, but don't publish your prices so openly. Now, there's a number of ways that different businesses would publish prices, and sometimes it can't be avoided to publish a price. But if you can publish a guide price or a low-end price where somebody comes back to you to discuss it in more detail, then that's always a better option. The other thing is, if you do quotations, stop quoting and start proposing. If you make it easy for somebody to compare you against the competition purely on price, then that's what they'll do. And we need to find ways that differentiate us and make us look different, other than simply just the price. So propose a solution. Don't just quote, because otherwise the bottom line will be compared. Develop a strong USP so that you're differentiated on something other than just price. Make sure that USP is part of the value proposition that you put to your customers. Let's take an example. I could go and I could buy a low-cost vacuum cleaner from Argos for £25. Or alternatively, I could buy a Dyson for £200. Now, there's a massive difference between those two. But Dyson work very hard on their value proposition. So they use the USP that you get 100% of the suction 100% of the time, therefore inferring that your vacuuming would be easier and quicker and more reliable. And my time is valuable, so I just want to get it done as quickly as possible. So that therefore is better value to me, even though it's more expensive. Develop your own USP and make sure that doesn't include price and service, because everybody says that. Try to add value with other services. So keep your prices higher, but add something to it that makes the product have a perceived greater value. So for example, include a training session, or include some consultancy, or set up the product for them. Ideally, these add-ons will cost you very little. But what you should do is put a price on them as far as the customer sees it. So if you offer training for free with the product, then you say that that training is worth £200. Therefore, it has a perceived higher value to the potential customer or prospect. Now, one thing that I've always liked to do is, if you offer a service, try to package these services up. Instead of just charging by the hour or by the day, try to offer a fixed price package. In that way, you can collect a load of services together and charge one single fee. It cuts the risk to the customer, but it also means that if you get more efficient at what you do, then you can become more profitable and generate a bigger and greater margin. The final thing is if you build trust with people, then people buy from people. And if your product is one where you have the opportunity to speak directly with the customer, the more you do that, the more likely it is that they will trust you. And the more they trust you, regardless of your price, the more chance it is that they will buy from you. So let's go back to that first slide again. Just remember that people buy on value. They don't buy on price, unless you force price at them and make them simply compare prices. Value is the whole proposition that you're offering them. Whether you are reliable, whether they like you, whether they're going to get after sales service, whether the product is good, whether it's reliable. These are all the things that people consider to be value. And you need to make sure that you don't simply compare your product to the competitive products purely on price.